I am Jerry Eddins, Chairperson of Citizens for Milford, and I am here with tonight's other moderator, Joe Marias, a former Milford School Committee member as well as a current member of the Celebrate Milford Committee. On behalf of all the members of Citizens for Milford, we welcome you all here tonight, voters and candidates. Tonight, we are hosting our 10th Annual Candidate Forum, an opportunity for Milford voters to hear directly from the candidates and to enable you, the voters, to ask your own questions in a fair and natural setting. We are so grateful to once again be partnering with Milford TV. Not only are they managing the sound and live broadcast, they are also recording this important community event to ensure as many voters as possible can get the information needed to cast informed votes on Tuesday, April 4th. We also extend our thanks to the Milford Select Board and Town Administrator for supporting the forum, as well as to the custodians for helping to ensure our setup tonight here is perfect. This year's town election includes 3 contested races: 1 3-year seat on the planning board, 1 5-year seat on the planning board, and 2 seats on the school committee. Tonight, we will start the forum hearing from the 2 candidates running for the 3-year seat on the planning board. The second part of the forum will include 2 of the 4 candidates running for school committee. Planning board candidate Scott Vecchiola and school committee candidate incumbent Michael Agajanian are not participating tonight due to work conflicts. Also, 2 candidates who had originally agreed to participate are not able to be here tonight. Christopher Wilson, a candidate for the 5-year seat on the planning board, had originally accepted our invitation. However, as the current chair of the school committee, he needs to be present at a rescheduled meeting with the Milford Teachers Association tonight. And earlier today, we heard from Wilfredo Vasquez, a candidate for school committee, that he had a last-minute work trip to New York, making it not possible for him to attend tonight. Both candidates send their regrets, and we will read their statements in the appropriate segments of the forum. So on to the format. Each candidate tonight will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. Once candidates finish their opening statements, we will move on to the challenge segment. In this segment, each candidate will present 1 key issue they believe the planning board or the school committee must address. They will have 2 minutes to describe the issue and provide their own view on how it should be dealt with. The other candidate will have 2 minutes to respond and address the issue. Following the challenge segment, we will move on to citizen participation, in which we invite everyone in the audience to ask questions. If time permits, we will also pose questions that have been submitted in advance by email and Facebook and that continue to be submitted online and by phone this evening. We will manage the time fairly using a colored light system that enables candidates to track their time for statements and to answer questions. We have a screen at the back of the room, and we have somebody working the projector there. Green indicates to the candidates that your time has started, yellow indicates your time is almost up, and red means you are out of time. And so now I'm going to pass the microphone to Joe, and he's going to start the planning board segment.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Well, let's get started. So to review, we have 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the Milford Planning Board. John Ted DiPaolo Jr. and Mike Visconti are running for the 3-year unexpired seat, and Chris Wilson and Scott Vecchiola are running for the 5-year seat. As Jerry noted, we are hosting the 2 candidates running for the 3-year seat tonight, so welcome Ted and Mike to tonight's forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement. The order of the candidates' opening statements was randomly selected earlier tonight. Ted, please give us your opening statement.
All right. I want to thank Citizens of Milford for having a candidate forum. It's, I think, a worthy evening that I'm surprised we don't have more people here. But with everybody being so busy and the cable TV company doing their share, I'm sure people will see it. Thank you again. I would like to start off with just stating that I am running for planning board member. I have been on various committees and boards in the last 60 years of my lifetime of being a resident of Milford. This is a worthwhile commitment that I have had numerous discussions with other people over the last few years. I am actually on the planning board as I was appointed in the fall to a seat that was empty as somebody previously had resigned. I feel that if you're doing any substance that helps the community, you need to do it to the best of your ability. And this here is where I feel like my years of service to the community gives me an upper hand in the situations when a developer or a builder or somebody comes in to propose something. I've got a little bit of working knowledge of the community, being that I've lived there and worked there all my life, whether it was answering emergency calls or whether it was out in the street doing other commitments to the community. We all have a passion, and I have a passion for Milford. This is my hometown, and I was always told you always want to give back to where you are and the community that you're in. I feel like that you have to do that to make everybody have a little iron in the fire, to keep things beautiful and to keep things going, keep the community the way it is, a nice community. So that's why I'm running for planning board.
Thanks, Ted. And Mike, your opening statement?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen who are here in attendance tonight, and those of you who are watching comfortably at home on TV. My name is Mike Visconti, and I'm running for the 3-year open seat on the planning board. I am very concerned about the future development and redevelopment in our town. I believe that any development or redevelopment has to be planned and controlled, both to ensure both the character, both in terms of the preserving the character of our town and also creating an inviting environment to attract clean industry and commercial developments, which will broaden our commercial tax base, thereby lessening the burden on our residential property owners. I believe I am the most qualified candidate to get that done. I have 40 years' experience in planning, design, engineering, and construction under my belt, and I've gone before and worked with numerous planning boards throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. As far as my commitment to the town of Milford, I think it will be best said by saying that I spent 20 years on the Milford Zoning Board of Appeals. I have, at to which I had almost a perfect attendance. I was, my health kept me from attending a couple of meetings. Other than that, in the 20 years on that board, I had a perfect attendance record. Likewise, as a town meeting member since 1975, I have a perfect attendance at town meeting, and I have never hesitated to voice my opinion when it was in the best interest of the voters of Milford that I represent.
Mike, you're all set?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. So we're going to move on to the next segment of the forum, the Milford Planning Board Challenge. As a reminder, oh, sorry, we do have a statement from Chris Wilson.
Okay. So as I noted earlier, Christopher Wilson is running for the 5-year seat on the planning board, and this is his opening statement. Milford voters, I am Christopher Wilson and am running for the 5-year seat on the Milford Planning Board. Unfortunately and regrettably, I am not able to attend tonight's forum. It was my intention to be here, but due to school committee commitment, I am not able to. I would like the Milford voters to know before they cast their vote on April 4th that I am a 20-plus year resident of Milford, where my wife Kathy and I have raised our 2 children. We have made Milford our home and have a vested interest in its future. I am currently serving my 2nd term on the Milford School Committee and am the committee's current chairperson. I am a graduate of Northeastern University, where I obtained a degree in mechanical engineering. I have over 25 years of engineering and project management experience working at various engineering and manufacturing facilities here in Massachusetts. For the past 5 years, I have worked for a high-tech manufacturer in Milford. My experience serving as an elected board member and my general knowledge within the engineering field creates a good fit for this role and for the town of Milford. I want to ensure the town of Milford continues to grow with a balance of residential, commercial, and industrial properties that create a positive impact for all our citizens and for the resources needed to support this growth. I respectfully ask for your vote on April 4th. Chris Wilson.
All right, thank you, Jerry.
Sure.
So the next segment of the forum is the Milford Planning Board Challenge. As a reminder of the format for this segment, I'll start by asking Mike to present a key issue he believes the planning board needs to address. Mike will have 2 minutes to discuss, and then Ted will have 2 minutes to provide his own insight into that issue. We're also going to give Mike the opportunity to then rebut
Yes.
Ted's response, and you'll have 30 seconds. Is that what we agreed on?
A minute.
1 minute to
Thank
respond.
Thank you. I think it goes without saying that traffic in Milford is a huge issue and needs to be addressed by the planning board when they're looking at applications that come before them. If an application comes before me or the planning board if I am elected, and I feel there is any concern whatsoever that it may have any kind of negative effect on traffic in the immediate area or pinwheeling out to other sections of the town, I will push for an engineered traffic impact study to be submitted by the applicant. After I review that study, if I still have concerns, I will push to have a peer review completed on that engineered study to make certain that the methodology used and the ultimate conclusions of that study are accurate. I have had to submit these engineered traffic impact studies on numerous occasions to other towns that are concerned about the traffic situation in their town, and I will push for that in Milford. Thank you.
Thanks. Ted?
Okay, as far as the traffic in town, that's been a long-standing issue for many years. Being someone that actually lived on Main Street for many years, I can tell you that it went from very little commercial traffic to an awful lot of commercial traffic. I think anything that we've had brought before the planning board, in my 7 months being on the board, a traffic study has been either presented by the developers or by the industrial contractor who's doing the job, so that the answers are already in the packet that we receive. If anything like that didn't come with the packet, it would be requested due to the concern of traffic, and basically we got to keep everything moving in the right way. And I know 3 years ago or 2 years ago, we had a downtown did all the new lights and sidewalks and all that. So if you don't notice it, you will notice it when you come down now, that all the lights turn green consecutively so that traffic is always moving. And that is something that was needed, and it was done 2 years ago, so it does help. The bypass road that the town never had behind Sacred Heart, that would have alleviated a major, major issue with traffic, but that never was done. So the instance that somebody brings something into the board, it has to be addressed because it warrants it. We are getting bigger. We are getting more congested. It needs to be addressed As soon as the board gets the paperwork, if it's not in there, we do ask for it, and that's how we can keep everything moving slowly. Otherwise, we will have more congestion and more problems. But that's the best way we can handle that.
Thanks, Ted. Mike, any additional comments?
Sure, yeah, the traffic studies that Mr. DiPaolo was referring to are traffic studies that are submitted by the applicant, that were prepared by the applicant's selection of the engineer, and not an independent third party. I'm talking about third-party, uninterested engineers completing engineered traffic studies, which is a completely different animal. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. All right, Ted, we'll pose the same question to you. Is there any particular issue that you feel the planning board needs to focus on and address?
I feel that the town has grown in great.
Ted, I'm going to interrupt for just a minute. I'm getting messages from different people saying that folks at home are having a hard time hearing both of you. So if you maybe pull the microphones up a little bit closer to you, because we want to be sure everybody at home can hear what you're saying. Just not too. Right. Okay.
Okay, is that better?
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I apologize for interrupting you, Ted.
That's all right. I'd rather be heard. Last year I was told I was too loud, so
Yeah.
I guess I'll
Okay.
get it right. But the concern and the issues that I think that we need to address first, Dan, would be having apartments on Main Street on the second, third, and fourth floors of commercial district. It's something that has been brought to the attention of the town meeting before, and it was always either passed over or was voted down. Right now, a lot of the people who own property on the Main Street and the commercial areas, the last 3 years with COVID, their finances are shot. Whether their tenant left town or their tenant closed the business or the business that they had suffered. So if we can help these property owners in any way, I think we need to take a longer look and a more in-depth look at having apartments on Main Street. And also with that, maybe the zoning on Main Street could be adjusted so that you could have like something like a Craft Roots Brewery in the old buildings, like the old racquetball club. That would be a great location for something like that. More interest in the community, so that, you know, at 6 o'clock you don't see the lights closed down on Main Street. There are businesses that could use the assistance, and I think those are the areas that we need to address.
Thanks, Ted. Mike, you have 2 minutes to provide your
Thank
perspective.
you. Number one, it is not the planning, does not fall under the purview of the planning board to subsidize downtown property owners. I have, for the last few months, started my research into the pros and cons of apartments on Main Street in anticipation of an article that may come before town meeting to do just that. So I am ready to go. I have not put all my thoughts together yet. I'm still in the collection phase of my research. But I can guarantee you that I will come to town meeting if this article comes before town meeting, fully prepared to address it, either pro or con, depending on the results of my research. Thank you.
Thanks. And Ted, any additional comments?
No, not at this time.
All right, thank you.
Comfortable with what I said.
All right. Jerry, it's a
Okay.
citizen
Yes,
participation.
okay. So, now it is time for Milford voters to ask their own questions of the candidates. We invite anyone with a question to please walk up to the standing mic, which is right over here, at any time during this segment. Members of the audience and candidates, please keep in mind the following ground rules for asking and answering questions. Members of the audience, please limit your question to 30 seconds. Candidates, please try to respond with an answer that is no longer than 2 minutes. Questions can be directed to one particular candidate or to both candidates. If a question is directed to only one candidate, he will have 2 minutes to respond and the other candidate will have 1 minute to comment. The candidate who answered initially will have 1 minute to rebut. The moderators reserve the right to extend the answer time if needed. And importantly, members of the audience, please be considerate when stating a question. Each candidate has supporters in the room. Be respectful, avoid personal attacks. We reserve the right to dismiss an insensitive or inappropriate question, to cut off political statements, and to move on. Thank you. Finally, a reminder to the folks watching at home. Please submit your questions now by Facebook Messenger, email, text, or by phone call as shown on your screen. We will try to pose as many of your questions as possible. So, let's get started. If you have a question and would like to ask the candidates, please go ahead and approach the microphone. If Joe and I do not see anybody at the microphone, we will proceed to questions that have been submitted online or by phone. Throughout this process, please feel free to approach the microphone at any time. And we have our first person to ask a question. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Joe. First of all, I'd like to say we're very fortunate here in Milford to have these fine candidates running for the 3-year seat and candidates running for our 5-year seat. No matter who wins, I am sure we will be well served by whoever is selected by the community. The one thing that, even after 40 years in living in Milford, that I've always been confused about in terms of the role of the planning board is the word planning. I've always found the actions of the planning board to just be reactive. Somebody brings a project in front, it goes through a process, and it is agreed to, modified, and then, implemented. But there's no planning. I wonder if the town planner and the planning board should be more involved in thinking about what Milford should look like, let's say in 2028 or 2033, in leading the planning of Milford so that we don't face the same problems today that we, might face 10 years from now. So my question is specifically either to both the role of planning within the planning board. Thank you.
Mike, you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I believe that absolutely there should be a plan, and part of that is having a comprehensive plan prepared for our town. Now, we had one prepared back in '03, done by the folks at UMass, and I consulted with them to state my opinion on where Milford is going, what I felt strongly about was not going to attain that end for us. Several of those comments were included in the comprehensive plan. Unfortunately, since that plan was completed in '03, not one planning board, not one administrative board has taken advantage of any of the tenets of that plan. The plan now should probably be at a point where it needs to be updated, but I would only agree or support updating the plan if there was a commitment from the planning board, the administrators of the town, to take the recommendations of that plan and implement them into our town. And as I said before, I believe it's important to maintain the character of our town while we attract development, because the development is important to the survival of our town, commercial, industrial, and retail. It will benefit clean, healthy, commercial, industrial developments are the key to a successful town. Thank you.
Ted, would you like to reply?
Sure.
The comprehensive plan that was made in 2003 by UMass has come to the end of its life cycle, and I know from being in the planning board meetings that it's already been discussed on when and where we need to go with this. One thing I'd like to see implemented in the next comprehensive plan is a 5-year, 8-year, 10-year, 15-year cycle of review, which if it's a 20-year plan, we're not waiting for the last 5 years. We've got a head start 15 years prior, or 10 years prior, or 8 years prior, or 5 years prior. And that's something I believe the community needs, because as I said earlier in my conversation when we were addressing things, the town is growing in leaps and bounds. We have to have all of our eggs in a row, all of our T's dotted, crossed, our I's dotted, so that when it gets to a situation, we're not holding our hands up wondering what we need to do. We have a plan, and the plan is it has to be addressed so that, and like I said, you have 8 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, so that we're not standing there in 20 years wondering where our next step is. So I feel like that would be something that needs to be part of the new comprehensive master plan that is being discussed. Even though the last one was in 2003, it's pretty comprehensive enough that you knew everything that was going on, and it's a good artwork or a good program to stick with and stay with for the community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a question that was just texted in that I'll read, and then Ted, I'll let you answer first. What are your views on in-home businesses in strictly residentially zoned neighborhoods? When, if at all, are they appropriate, and how would you approach it? A variance, a bylaw change? Ted?
Well, each individual business in each individual neighborhood, residential community, would have to be addressed individually because circumstances are different. You can't have somebody have a automotive repair shop in a residential neighborhood because of building codes. That is something that would be out of the ordinary, and it couldn't be addressed in any way possible because of the zoning, but also because of the standards that the fire plans in the state of Massachusetts regulate for as far as explosions or any hazardous materials. So if you wanted to put a daycare, or if you wanted to put a beauty shop, or if you wanted to put a nail salon, all those things would have to be addressed individualized because each residential street and neighborhood, excuse me, is different, and it would have to be done in a way that it entailed a little bit of comprehensive niceness, so that if you put an addition on for a beauty shop, when you look at from the house, from the street, you're looking at the home, it looks like it fits there. You don't want to have a green building with a pink attachment. You know, you want to have it all synced together, and it's not an eyesore for the community. So each individual would have to be addressed in a way that it would incorporate that residential area or that building so that it didn't impact it in a negative way.
Mike, your response?
Sure. Currently, our bylaws provide for home businesses with a special permit issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. DiPaolo mentioned beauty shops. Beauty shops are allowed within the main residential building with a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals, whose job it is to ensure that by having that beauty shop inside of a residential house, it will not have a negative effect on traffic or the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood. You cannot have a freestanding beauty shop in a residential property. For example, if you have a residential house and you have a garage, a freestanding garage on that property, you cannot, there are no provisions or special permit that will allow that garage to be turned into a beauty shop. These rules are already in place, and each individual situation is considered based on its own merits. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. All right, we did receive a question prior to the forum that was emailed in, so bear with me, this is a long one here, guys. In 2008, there was a plan to build a new office park off of Cedar Street. As part of the plan, the developer agreed to put in signals on Cedar Street at I-495 southbound and at a new intersection of Cedar and Dare Streets and fix up Dare Street. Among other improvements, they would also widen 495 southbound off-ramp and a stretch of Route 85 by adding lanes. That plan never became reality. A lot has changed since 2008, and I and many others want to know what is going to be done to improve this hazardous intersection. As a resident of Walden Woods, on Route 85 just north of the new Quill Apartments, the very busy Garrett's gas station and market, in addition to a very large growth in the amount of building in the area, traffic needing access to Route 85 north, not to mention the added growth in Hopkinton. Is any plan in place to make these improvements in 2023? Taking a left-hand turn from 495 south exit is lengthy and hazardous adventure. What can you tell us? Is there a plan, and if not, would you support improvements?
Well, as far as I know, I am not aware of any plan other than to enforce what the developer has already agreed to. You see, we can require conditions and commitments from a developer to make improvements, but if there is no enforcement, then we're wasting our time. We need to, and the planning board is not an enforcement entity. That is handled by other departments, building department, zoning enforcement, that type of thing. What I would like to see is something similar to what Framingham had. When I built and designed in Framingham, I had to commit 3%, I believe it was 3%, it was a few years back, so it may have changed. I had to commit 3% of the total project cost to improving the infrastructure of the town, i.e. traffic lights, widening streets, that type of thing. That was a bylaw, a Framingham bylaw. And I would like to see something like that in Milford. Maybe not the exact language, but something similar to that, so that if we feel that there will be a dangerous situation, as there may be down on 85, then the town will not have to foot the bill to make those improvements. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Ted?
As far as 2008, that's 15 years ago. And those plans were, if I recall, that was for 5 commercial industrial buildings for Deer Road. It was going to be an industrial park very similar to the one in Hopkinton off of South Main Street. And after 2008, when the real estate economy and everything else crashed, the builders didn't move forward with it. The first building they built, which was Depot Restaurant, the warehouse down there, that showed signs of them maybe coming in and continuing the development with the 5 buildings. But the plans in the 2008 that the gentleman who sent in the email, that has no bearing on what's there now, because before I was on the planning board, it came in as a residential and the town changed it. And now they have 300 apartments and they're in the process of building 250 more apartments. That would be something that would have to be addressed with the builder of the apartments. And that would be something that's probably on record downstairs.
Thank you. We have another question that's come in on the phone line. I think Milford is getting too built up and commercial. What are your thoughts on keeping Milford more family-friendly and attractive? Ted, you can answer first, please.
I believe that would be a great idea, but progress is change and change is progress, and people right now, they want to see change. Plus, with the apartments, we have to meet or exceed the state bylaw, which is at, I believe it's 10%, and we have done that now with the new buildings that are down off of Deer Street, which we just spoke about, and all of the other apartments that are being built. But to stop property owners from building something that is legally okayed in that zoning area, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. I mean, we can put parameters on it, keep it in the parameters that are set by the town with the zoning and the bylaws that go with that property, but if people are paying the mortgage or own the property and they're paying taxes, and it's legally acceptable in that zoning, it's hard to stop that without a lawsuit. So that would be either change the zoning or tighten the regulations that we have.
Mike?
Yeah, as I said in my opening statement, I'm very concerned about preserving the character of our town. And in doing this, the planning board absolutely can deny applications if they feel, among other things, that it is not in the best interest of the town, or that it will create negative situations such as traffic. Now, this was emphasized recently in a lawsuit involving the town of Rowley. Town of Rowley Planning Board denied an application because they felt that, for example, among other things, they cited the access road to the development was not adequate. It went to court, and in that court case, Ritt versus Town of Rowley Planning Board, the court found that the planning board was absolutely within their right to not approve that plan. So it is possible to stop developments that will not benefit the town. As far as the business park on Deer Street, it was supposed to be a business park with clean businesses, not industrial. Now, somewhere along the line, it got polluted, and I use the word polluted because I can't think of a better word. It got polluted with a restaurant depot that was supposed to be a wholesale distributor to restaurants with no retail sales. Well, I can tell you from my own experience, my family members routinely walk in that front door, hand over the cash, and walk out with restaurant supplies. Now, I don't have a restaurant, unless you want to consider my stove and my oven restaurant quality, and they're not. And once again, we get down to enforcement. The business parks that you see on South Street and Hopkinton are what Deer Street was supposed to be. Not industrial, not commercial, not retail sales of restaurant products. Thank you.
All right, so Mike, I think this question's for you to start. 88% of Massachusetts cities and towns have earned green communities recognition, committing to cost savings, energy reductions, and gaining access to millions of dollars in state funding. Milford is the only town in a 10-mile radius that is not currently a green community. If elected, will you commit toward helping Milford meet the criteria to becoming green?
Thank you. I have suggested in the past on numerous occasions, informally, albeit, that Milford seek green community status. As the moderator just indicated, one of the biggest advantages is it opens us up to millions of dollars of grant money that is now going to other towns that have become green communities. Now, there are some specifications and requirements that you have to meet to become a green community. For example, a certain percentage of the town municipal vehicles need to be green vehicles, whether they be fully EV or hybrids. What that means is and this is where it gets a little tricky because some of the technology is not far enough advanced to do this, but things like police cruisers, municipal vehicles that the highway department might have, or any of the individual departments in the community might have, would all have, a certain percentage would all have to be green vehicles, if you will. But the rewards you would reap from that are just unbelievable. And I am a firm believer of Milford seeking green community status, as I have been for years. Without mentioning names, and I will not mention names, the people in the town I have talked to about pushing for a green community have essentially shrugged their shoulders and said, "No, it'll never happen." Well, it'll never happen if we don't make it happen. You may remember the late 60s. No one had ever reached the moon. No one had ever set foot on the moon. Well, somebody had to be first, somebody had to do it, and we did it. Green community is a real thing, it's a productive thing, and it's a financially beneficial thing. We need to pursue it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Ted, same question.
Yeah, I believe that we should have already been part of this process. We spoke about it last year at the candidate forum. I think whatever we can do today will help future generations tomorrow. And that is something that we need to be a part of, whether it be solar parks, or windmills, or electric car station, charging stations. I know there's a few in the community, and there's probably going to be a whole lot more. But I do understand that 88% of the community is part of it, and we're part of the 12% that's not. So whether it be a task force, or whether it be the town meeting puts together a group where research is done, and they bring it back to the body in the fall, and we start the initiation going forward then, we need to address the situation so that we don't get behind. And if all the federal funds that are there benefit the community, it's even more of an incentive to be part of the green package, because it helps the community, whether it be the tax base or whether it be for the infrastructure that is needed to go green. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. All right, Ed, so Ted, this question's for you. We'll start with you. What, if anything, do you think about the proposed dog park?
Excuse me?
What, if anything, do you think about the proposed dog park?
The dog park that I've heard about, I don't know much about it, but considering I own 2 Labradors, I'll take a dog park any day. Because back in the day when I was a kid, we didn't have a leash law, and we would ride our bikes to Louisa Lake and Milford Pond and Roosevelt Park, and our dogs would be with us. And granted, things have changed, you know, it's been 50 years or so, but the dogs, they're part of the community. They need a dog park, and I believe there is funds out there, both federal and state, that would help the community with moving forward with a dog park being constructed.
Thanks, Ted. Mike, same question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. In my opinion, there is no reason why Milford dog owners should have to travel to Medway or travel to Uxbridge to find a dog park to socialize their dog. I am fully supportive of a dog park in Milford, as long as it's placed appropriately in a manner that does not have a negative effect on neighbors or on traffic. I fully support a dog park in Milford. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. I have another text question that came in, but just a reminder before we close up the questions for the planning board, anyone who is here present in town hall, please just go ahead and walk to the microphone at any time. So here's the most recent question. Please describe one recent project in Milford you felt was a success in terms of municipal planning, and one you disagree with the approach that was used, and why. And Mike, can you go first, please?
Okay, yeah, I hate to do this. Could you just repeat that quickly?
Sure. Please describe one recent project in Milford you felt was a success in terms of municipal planning, and another project that you disagree with the approach that was used, and explain why.
Okay, as I indicated before, I think the intent of a business park on Deer Street was appropriate and planned appropriately in this town. It's a shame that, as I said before, it was polluted with non-business developments. So I'm thrilled that we were finally going to get a business park similar to, or what would have been similar to what you see on South Street in Hopkinton and on, I forgot the name of the street, in Bellingham, where they have legitimate business parks with businesses in them, not commercial industrial buildings and not retail buildings. So I'm disappointed that there is no enforcement to that extent.
Ted?
As far as
I'm sorry.
As far as a positive development, I think the development of the Bear Hill area was planned and executed quite well. It's unfortunate that we have an occupant in that area that thinks very little of Milford, especially when it comes to creating traffic jams. But as far as the planning and the execution of the development of the Bear Hill area, I believe it was handled well. Thank you.
Okay, Ted.
As far as, I believe the positive was the municipality input or the municipality work that was done. I think that the two rain retention gardens that were done at the town park last year, between the highway department, the park department, the conservation commission, the park directors and all that, I think that is positive, positive, positive. Anytime you can get rainwater or runoff water not to flow into the Charles or the Milford Pond or anything, and we can utilize it in a better way, it will help with all of everything that flows downstream. And I think that was a positive thing, and I know a lot of people were kind of bewildered when they saw excavators in the town park at the bandstand. I heard a few people mention that, oh, they're tearing the bandstand down. And no, you reached out in the community, you find out what's going on, and you see the big hole, you see all the baffles and all of the fabric that retains all of the components that we don't want in our watershed area. So I think that was a very big positive one. In fact, between that and the one on Dilla Street at Sumner Street, which was built by a contractor in the area, those three areas right there definitely helped the community with rainwater runoff. As far as a negative, I would have to say, we talked about widening intersections from Sacred Heart to Cedar Street to Route 109 and 16, and I know a lot of people have reached out to me and said, geez, when it's going to be done. Route 16 is a state highway. The state has to come in and do all of that. We can propose it or request it. I know they'll look at it. There's talk about moving some of the sidewalks, and some of the businesses are close to the street, but like I said, the state would have to take care of that, and the state would have to do those three intersections that we spoke about. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have someone who's at the microphone?
Hi, my name is Bob Weishar. I've been a Milford resident for 25 years, and I just wanted to tie together some of the things that I've heard here tonight. I think it was Mr. Rose was talking about planning for the future. I was talking to Mr. Rickert before, and he was talking about how the schools are just flooded with kids. And a couple minutes ago, we talked about a park for the dogs. And I know that Milford has a lot of dogs, but we also have an awful lot of kids. And I was just wondering what the Planning Commission was maybe doing to try and make more things for the kids to do, to give them things to do that are fun. And I know that I see that we just opened up a Frisbee golf thing over by Louisa Lake, which is great. This past weekend, I had the occasion to go up to Marlboro. My daughter got a ticket for an escape room at a place in Marlboro. It's called Apex Complex, which I don't know if any of you have ever heard about, but I was just stunned when I got up there. It's a huge, massive thing with tons of things for families. There's go-karts, axe throwing, escape rooms, bowling, all kinds of things for families and kids. Does Milford have any way of kind of recruiting or planning for something like that for our kids and our families?
Thank you for the question. Ted, could you answer first, please?
Sure. As far as Apex goes, that's privately funded, privately owned company. Municipalities would not have something that large or that kind of a business in Milford. I'm sure if we could attract somebody like that, that'd be a great thing. I've been to Apex. It's very, very nice. We do have an area in town that is zoned for that, but it would have to come from a private entity because that's something the town wouldn't do. But as far as the dog park compared to the kids and all that, I think the planning board, we don't propose anything. Where the planning board, we review what businesses or homeowners or developers or entities want to put in the community. We don't bring anything to town meeting that says, we want to put a Apex, we want to put a dog park. That is all from other departments or other groups. As far as the planning board, we review the plans, we review the conditions that were set forth by the zoning board or by the town engineer, town mechanic, town engineer, and the town company, town departments involved in it. Other than that, everything is out of the planning board's hands as far as anything being built.
Mike?
I believe that we certainly do need recreation for our younger generation. And to that end, right now, while it does not fall under the purview of the planning board, the Parks Department is in the process of securing grant money to refurbish Town Park completely, including revamping the tennis courts, possibly a skate park court of some type, an exercise area that could be used by one and all, coupled with the refurbishing of the small lot behind, well, across the street from the youth center, which was in years past a usable basketball court. I believe there were maybe two hoops there. I can't recall exactly from my memory, but it has fallen under disrepair, and part of the grant money is, if awarded, is earmarked to refurbish that entire area to include different types of activities for the youngsters. Also, I believe included in the town park renovation could possibly include a pickleball court, which not really my cup of tea, but it's becoming a very popular sport these days. So those types of things are planned, and I think it would be a mistake to say that Milford does not have many recreational facilities. We have a ballpark at Pheno Field, which has oftentimes been compared to the quality of Fenway Park in terms of its structure and maintenance. Not many towns can say that. We have many fields, sports fields, to be used for baseball, ball sports of all types, soccer, which has become very popular these days, certainly not with my generation, maybe, but with the younger generations. So I believe we have the recreation, both active and passive recreation, in this town, and it could be improved upon, and we should be looking for ways maybe to improve upon it, but to say that we're lacking, I believe is a misnomer.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. We have time for one more question, and Joe's going to read something that had come in advance.
So other than the proposed residential developments already under consideration, are there additional parcels available in town for which you would recommend proactively seeking a change in zoning to prevent further impacts on Milford's infrastructure? I'm going to start with you, Mike.
Yeah, as far as the residential facilities that are planned in Milford, and nobody wants to say the words, but 40B is a state mandate. Milford has nothing to do with 40B. The state mandates a certain percentage of affordable housing. Now, if a town has not reached that percentage, then a developer can come into the town and basically ignore all of the zoning regulations in terms of setbacks, height restrictions on buildings, those types of things, and pretty much build whatever they want as long as 25% of the units in that building are affordable. So Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Thanks,
Okay.
Mike.
The area down off of East Main Street in the vicinity of Wildwood Drive is a large parcel of land that could be used for a residential construction. Something like that, you might want to look at it for maybe a activity center for families, or incorporate it into soccer fields or baseball fields or something like that if the town warranted. Or if you looked at Upper West Street between Asylum Street after Dairy Queen, between Asylum Street and West Street, that land up there, they could probably incorporate more of a dentist, doctor's, offices like that, so that you can spread out the congestion so that it's up on 140 and it's not downtown, or it's not on East Main Street or Medway Road. Those are the areas that people haven't grabbed yet, but it's something the town should look further into.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have reached the end of the Planning Board Forum. I want to thank both of you, Ted and Mike, for participating tonight and sharing your vision and your goals for the Milford Planning Board. Can we have a round of applause for Ted and Mike, please? Thank you, and now I would like to ask the two candidates for school committee to come onto the stage, please.
Nice job, guys.
Okay.
Oh, checking the microphones. Okay. Okay, so let's get started with the school committee segment. To review, the four candidates for 2 seats on the Milford School Committee are Michael Agajanian, who is the incumbent, Martine Montoya, Brendan Rickard, and Wilfredo Vasquez Jr. As noted earlier, we are hosting 2 of these candidates tonight. Welcome, Brendan and Martine, to tonight's forum. Before the forum, the order of the candidates' opening statements was determined, and Martine will be giving the opening statement first.
Good evening, Milford. I want to take a moment and say thank you to Jerry and Citizens for Milford for taking the time to put on this event, and a big thank you to Milford TV for providing us with a voice in an era where there is nowhere near enough coverage for local political events. That said, my name is Martine I. Montoya. My family moved to Milford in 1989, and I graduated from Milford High School in 1999. This occurred in an era in town where my family was probably about 3% of the Spanish-speaking population. If you fast forward about 30 or so years since then, things have dramatically changed within this community. In the years since then, I've had the pleasure of working as a technical contractor and then later as a business owner here in the community, providing technology services to the town and the district. In the last 3 years, I have served on the Milford Cultural Council as the treasurer and have had the joy of my life, my 2 baby girls, come to be. That has kind of precipitated my run for school committee, because in numerous discussions that I've had in the community, Milford is really struggling, both with our facilities and with our language programming, and meeting the general needs of the student population so that all of them have the opportunity to excel. As a father, business owner, a taxpayer, and a committed member of this community, I have chosen to come back to this town to provide my family with more opportunity than I had for myself. In that realization, it came to the conclusion that I can't do these things unless we provide the school district with the support that they need to succeed in educating all of the students of the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Martine. Brendan, can you give your statement, please?
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you to Citizens for Milford for putting this on, Milford TV for broadcasting this, and Martine is correct that the opportunities to speak to the public are becoming diminished, so thank you for this. My name is Brendan Rickert, and I'm running for school committee because the education of our children is the most important issue in the town of Milford. 5 years ago, my wife and I made the choice to move to Milford because we enjoy everything that Milford has to offer, including its location, amenities, diversity, and schools. I ran for school committee 3 years ago, and while I didn't win, I took the feedback of the voters that they needed to know more about me, and I needed to gain more experience before running again. After that election, I went to town hall and filled out the application form to be considered for the boards and committees, and was thankfully appointed to the Milford Youth Commission, of which I have served for nearly 3 years, and I'm currently the chair of. I'm in my second term as a town meeting member, and I volunteer as a mentor in the Milford Connections program at the high school. It is in these experiences that have provided me the necessary tools and insights to being successful for this position. The Milford schools have a pressing need in classroom space throughout the district, and the high school is due for a major renovation and/or replacement. Additionally, we need the new resources for educational programs to prepare students for their respective paths after graduation. I have a proven track record in my current town positions in these areas that show my ability to work with various departments, offices, and people to achieve the needs of this community. I believe showing up matters. I've never missed a single town meeting vote and only one youth commission meeting. And in fact, 6 days after the birth of my daughter, I was in front of the personnel board advocating for a position at the youth center. Being a school committee member is a serious position that requires the member to go to the extra effort to accomplish the goals of the committee. I believe the education of our children is the most important issue in the town of Milford because our students, parents, teachers, staff, and administrators deserve our best. Thank you.
Thank you. As previously noted earlier in the forum, we're going to read the statement from Wilfredo Vasquez. Joe.
Hello all. I'd like to reintroduce myself. My name is Wilfredo Willie Vasquez, and I am again running for school committee. I'm a father of 3 children, a Stacy Middle School student, 1 Woodland student, and 1 Memorial student. For 25 years, I've worked in the financial industry in Boston, and my wife, Amy, works for Cycle Bar, a local small business here in town. I've spent countless hours investigating the what's and whys of our district. I've met with decision makers and finance members to garner a real understanding of the challenges ahead. I realize you have a choice for this upcoming election. In fact, there are 4 candidates, including myself, that will be on the ballot. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you what sets me apart from the others. Number 1, I believe I'm the only candidate running who has children in the school system, if I'm not mistaken. This gives me unique daily insight to what is actually happening within the buildings from a parent and child's perspective. Number 2, finance and numbers are my background. With 25 years in the industry, I understand budgeting and manage multi-million-dollar portfolios, projects, and plans. 3, I understand what the students and parents of Milford actually need and want. I spend my days and nights on fields coaching teams, at school functions interacting with staff and parents, and truly hearing what our daily struggles are. If you're looking for a candidate that has a vested interest in improving our school's offering, is knowledgeable about budgeting, and genuinely wants to get involved for the sake of the children, I respectfully ask you for your vote on April 4th. Willie Vasquez.
Thank you. Okay, so next we're going to move on to the school committee challenge. Each candidate will present an issue that he sees as something of concern in the public schools. The other candidate will have 2 minutes to respond, and then the candidate who presents that issue will also have 1 minute to rebut. And so we are going to start with Brendan.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my issue, and I don't want to be negative, so I'm going to go with the positive. We actually, here in Milford, have a rare opportunity for some creativeness with our budget. So for reference, the town of Hopkinton is making a very tough decision this year to cut $1.6 million from their educational budget. We're increasing our budget. And that's kind of unheard of right now throughout the state. So we have an opportunity to influence some of the programs that we offer. Just for reference, the school committee has three main functions, budget being the biggest, administrative, and then a little bit of curriculum. About 90% of our budget is spoken for through salary, things like heating, gas for buses, things of that nature. So we have about 10% as school committee members to have an influence over. To give you some other stats, about 25% of our students go straight into the workforce, and we have a very high rate of students who are economically disadvantaged. About 60% of our entire student population come from families who are economically disadvantaged. So some of the things that were discussed in the budget review back in January by the school committee were of interest to me about how we can create new programs, new initiatives to serve not just our top performers, not just the students that need the most help, but everyone in between for whatever their goals are. As the chair of the Youth Commission, we actually changed our scholarship to a grant to allow students who are seniors to take advantage of those funds for non-college educated initiatives. As some of the ideas that I have, I'd like to see a strong relationship with the biotech industry in town. I'd like to see a relationship that, for educational programming in relation to the new battery plant that's opening up downtown. And then other courses, like the school committee approved a new financial literacy course for the schools. So I'd like to see more of that, and I hope Martine does too.
Okay, Martine, can you please share your perspective on that issue, please?
With respect to the variance in district funding, this is actually a direct result of the fundamental challenges that Milford is facing. What does that mean? If you look at the income for the district in terms of dollars in from the town over the last 10 years, we have seen a gradual decrease in funding. That means taxpayers' dollars flowing into the district. Why is that? The funding that Mr. Reichert is referring to is derived from Chapter 70 and is a reflection of the changing demography of the community. So the question then becomes, what policy initiatives and what additional or supplementary services can the district put in place to start to reduce what I see as not necessarily symptomatic as in additional cash flow as a result of demographic changes, but as what I see is the fundamental change in the student population and how we can get all boats to rise equally. I agree with Brendan that our student body is diverse and they have a varied need, and as such the district needs to work to provide those students with the services that they need at their ingestion into the district so that they can perform 10 years out. Ultimately, the question as to what to do with these resources is how the school committee can support the district in making these programmatic changes to provide the services needed for these children. This isn't a question of a small percentage of the population. If you dig into those same numbers and you look at the comparison between Hopkinton and Milford, the overall need rate in our community is approaching 70%. If you look at those same numbers in Hopkinton, it's a fraction of that. Less than 20% of their population is faced with the same types of needs. So fundamentally, while we do have the benefit of additional income coming in, we're faced with challenges on how to make that work.
Thank you. Brendan, do you want to reply? One minute.
Yeah, just to tie things together. The school committee did approve additional EL teachers this past January. Other resources, including more curriculum investment into math, particularly in the elementary and middle school levels. The high school actually does very well. It's just the younger kids need a little bit more help. So there are new personnel coming on board. There are new initiatives coming on board. But I'd like to, as a potential school committee member, bring additional ones that reflect the ever-changing economy and future economies.
Okay. All right. Martine, your turn to present your issue, please.
Okay. I'm going to take a step back from the obvious question. I think everybody here knows that we need buildings, buildings, facilities, facilities. I want to dig into more of this demographic concern that we're discussing presently. And what I want to speak to is how the district is going to start to narrow the education and performance gap. What does that mean? That means that our specific populations that are of high need statistically underperform. Why? They statistically underperform because we have a large language learning deficit in this community. To Mr. Reichert's point, in the last few school committee meetings that we have attended, there has been motion to get more funding for the ELL and the ESL curriculum. I'm of the mindset that Milford needs to double down on this. Not only in the sense that, these programs are run through the special education department, but we have to acknowledge that that department is pretty much the envy of the state's special education program. And what we have is institutional knowledge in programming, in preparing curriculum for students that have specific needs. So I want to be here to support the district, here to support our superintendent, and here to support our students so that they can receive the additional curriculum and programming that they need to succeed as best they can. Why? Not only for today, but also so 10 years from now, so these students that are coming into our district can not only pass the MCAS, but can do so with flying colors.
Okay, Brendan, 2 minutes to respond, please.
Yeah, Martine's correct. Our current English learners rate for K through 12 is 50%. Compare that to the whole district, it's about a 15% increase over the last 5 years, and it is projected that will continue to go up. So Martine's correct that we need to keep on investing more into the English language learners program. One thing that I would actually add on to that, especially for the kids in the K to 2, K to 5 range, it would be a shame to not mention how COVID has affected them. I mean, they, at very impressionable ages, had to be confined to their homes initially, had very different challenges in learning coming out of COVID in those first couple months back in the September of 2020, and certainly through the following years as well. So, the schools have been asking for more guidance counselors and other support in those areas as well. I think that's all tied together. Serving the social emotional needs of the students, providing the proper resources so they can learn the language and be effective at the standardized tests. Those are all good things, and I would certainly work with anyone on the school committee to make those happen.
Thank you. Martine, 1 minute to respond.
To the point of ESL and emotional and social learning, there is no question that as a result of the events of the last 2 to 3 years, there have been a significant impact on the overall health of not only our students, but the entire population. But the original point that was presented was, how is it that we are going to close that educational gap between the haves and the have-nots within the community? And I'm going to reiterate that at the end of the day, if you are coming to this community and you do not speak English, and that is not your primary language, and you're coming in the 8th, 9th, 10th grade, and then you have to pass the MCAS, whether it's 8th, 10th, or to graduate, there is a high probability that you will not be able to pass that test. It is incumbent on us in this district to find the programming and the tools that we need to ensure that all of our students in the district can succeed.
Thank you. Okay. Now I'm going to pass it over to Joe, and he's going to review the rules for citizen participation.
All right. So it's now time for Milford voters to ask their own questions of the candidates. We got through that. So members of the audience and candidates, please keep in mind the following ground rules for asking and answering questions. Members of the audience, please limit your questions to 30 seconds. Candidates, please try to respond with an answer that is no longer than 2 minutes. Questions can be directed to one particular candidate or to both candidates. If a question is directed at only one candidate, he or she will have 2 minutes to respond, and the other candidates will have 1 minute to comment. The candidate who answered initially will have 1 minute to rebut. The moderators reserve the right to extend the answer time if needed, and importantly, members of the audience, please be considerate when stating a question. Each candidate has supporters in the room. Be respectful, avoid personal attacks. We reserve the right to dismiss an insensitive or inappropriate question, to cut off political statements, and to move on. Thank you. Finally, a reminder to the folks watching at home, please submit your questions now by Facebook Messenger, email, text, or phone call as shown on the screen. When we will try to pose as many of your questions as possible.
All right, would anybody like to walk up to the microphone to pose a question? We have several that have come in online as we've been sitting here tonight, but let's start with folks who are actually here. Harold, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Joe. Again, we're fortunate to have three very good candidates for the seats in the school committee, and each brings outstanding qualities, and no matter who we elect, we're very fortunate in this town to have such committed individuals. Both of you, and I'm sure many of the people here, know of my continuing concern about, well, I'll begin at the start of school choice out and the millions of dollars that taxpayers have had to pay to supplement the decisions of students, families who've chosen to leave Milford to attend another school district. But I want to put this in a larger context, which is the quality of the facilities that we offer, and specifically Milford High School. When my daughter graduated in 2006, the only thing she could say was, "This is old." Of course, she just went to Woodland, and just said it's old. It's 17 years later, and we've talked every year, as far as I can remember, about we need a new high school. And then the next year, we need a new high school. And I think every school committee for every year has addressed that. In the last several years, we have submitted statements of interest. And both of them, the 2020, or the 2021 and the 2022, we didn't even make the initial cut, even based upon the things that we've all said tonight. We didn't even make the initial cut. So
I'm gonna cut you off just a little bit because we just want to be sure we get everybody's questions.
I'm sorry.
So
you know me, Jerry, about this stuff. Okay. So
what's
do we
the
need?
question?
Thank you. What do we need to first? Have you read the previous MSBA applications? And what do we need to do this year so that we get state funding approved for what will likely be a 10-year-long project? Thank you, Jerry, for your patience.
Thanks for the question. Brendan, I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes, and thank you for reminding me that I graduated high school 17 years ago, so it makes me feel a little bit old. To get to your questions, yes, I've read the MSBA applications. I'm not sure if I've read the exact most recent copy for the 2023 version. A couple things stuck out to me. In the document, it describes the roof as being an issue, as a significant issue, but later on the document, it says that the roof is graded as satisfactory. So I think there's some clarifications that we need to make in the document to show that we're consistent throughout. But I think more to your point, how do we get accepted? I think we really have to kind of throw the whole kitchen sink at it. We need a joint effort, and I know the select board's behind it. I know other departments are, in addition to the school committee, but we need to show that in full force. We need to tighten up the application, again, make things consistent throughout, and really show why Milford is behind on this application.
Martine?
I have not had a chance to review the most recent copy of the MPAA application for 2023 either. What I will say is that these capital-intensive projects are process-driven, and they are bureaucratic and political processes. So if there have been deficiencies in prior applications, those need to be remediated before they even get back out the door. But more importantly, to Brendan's point, there's a political component to this as well. And what I mean by that is, it takes a village. That means that the town needs to present a united front in its desires and its ambitions. That's not just a school committee question. That becomes a FinCom question. That becomes a town-wide question. And ultimately, you know, the community has to speak a little bit through the appropriate channels to be heard at the state level. Assuming we can address some of the deficiencies in the application process, I mean, there really isn't any reason that any sane observer of the size and scope of our student body being shoehorned into the size of the buildings that we presently have can't see the base need. The unfortunate reality of this is, though, once admitted into the process, it is still going to be some time before we see that come to fruition. So we as a community must redouble all of our efforts to ensure that this project moves forward.
Thank you. Okay, we have another questioner at the microphone.
Yes, please, thank you. Mike Visconti. What I would like each of the candidates to do is consider these facts and then comment on them when I'm finished. In Milford, the student-to-teacher ratio in Milford is well below the state average. Our square foot of available space to student ratio is well above the state average. Our percentage of ELL students entering the system over the last 15 years is one of the lowest in the state. Our spending per student over the last 15 years is well above the state average. And yet, consistently, every year for the last 15 years, the Milford system has dropped dramatically in the state rankings to an embarrassing level. If you can comment on that, thank you, on those facts, thank you.
Okay, Martine.
So there's a couple of different components to that question, Mr. Visconti, and I want to speak to the percentage of the student population and the body that has changed. Up until about 2008, 2009, the Hispanic population or the Spanish-speaking population was under 10%. If you fast forward to about 2014, 2015, that accelerated rapidly through a round of immigration to the community, and those levels raised to 16, 17%. Fast forward again another decade, and that population is currently at 30.5%. So, to answer your question as to where are the performance metrics going and why are MCAS scoring falling, it's a direct result of having a changing demographic population that has limited skill and command over the English language. If you present a scenario where you have to excel in the language to pass a test to a student who does not speak that natively, there are going to be repercussions, and that is borne out by the MCAS data. Now, you can stand it on its head and say, hey, you can put any top 10% of our school district against the next school district. That's fine. This isn't about the top 10%. This is about trying to provide education to all students, regardless of their demographic background and regardless of what their intermediate need is. So I would point us back to part of the earlier conversation where I said I would like to see Milford double down and its special education programming, and I would like to see Milford expand its English language learning offerings. And I would go so far as to say, I think it is unacceptable that Milford, with a student population that's 30.5% Hispanic and Latino, we do not have an immersion program. That is a failure on the district's part. But they are moving in the direction to make those changes. I've had conversations with the central office, both with Mr. Consigli and with Mr. McIntyre regarding some of those intents, and they are working arduously to bring this on.
Thank you. Brendan?
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Visconti. To kind of go through some of your points that you made, part of the reason why we have a high, or I guess a low student to teacher ratio is because of the special needs challenges that we have. We have to employ more educators, to Martin's point, for EL learners, special need learners. So we are actually setting the example as to what a robust special needs program is in the state. I'd say that's a positive and a great investment from the town. Space, I think we've all had the discussion about the space of the high school, how there's actually a lot of dead space in it. One of my mentees at the high school, one of his classrooms is a former storage closet. They fit 25 kids in a storage closet. I don't know how you could argue that we have enough space at the high school. We also are getting modular classrooms. We don't have enough space. As far as enrollment, as I mentioned before, about 50% of our K-2 age children are English as a second language, or English is not their primary language at home. And again, to Martine's point, our test scores are low because we have students who don't speak the language or naturally speak the language, and they have to take these standardized tests in English. Now, I do not like standardized tests to begin with. One, because I never was a good test taker, and two, they are more advantaged to people and families who are economically advantaged. That being said, as a school committee member, we have to follow the letter of the law, which means we have to prepare our students for MCAS, and do that in a way that's effective for the students to learn and excel at those scores. So I agree, we always could do better, and that's why I want to be on the school committee.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, so you both have touched on the importance of providing resources and support to our high needs population. How do you ensure that that's done, how do you ensure that that's not done at the expense of the average student within the current budget parameters? I think that's you.
Okay, me first. And this is a question that came in. Okay. Yeah, let me think about that for a second. I don't think it's an either-or issue, and to kind of frame it in that sense is derogatory to an extent. Just because we have to invest more into certain learners doesn't mean we're letting the average student go by. There are many opportunities to be had. Now, I will say there are other support opportunities that we can provide as a district. I think that more guidance counselors throughout the district is something that would help with that gap of that quote-unquote average student who might be feeling that maybe being left behind. They might not be capable or want to go to that honors or even AP level course. But likewise, there's a lot of opportunities for everyone in between. I think it's tough to answer that question without a little bit more context. Again, I'd like to hear a bit more as to what that feeling is to answer that more intelligently.
It is very difficult to approach a question that is kind of clutched in the us versus them mentality. As school committee members, it isn't a matter of choosing and picking between populations and individual students or advocating or advancing a cause for a specific political or social purpose. At the end of the day, we have to work with the fixed budgetary aspects of the committee's role, i.e. dealing with the diligences, the utilities, the buildings, the infrastructure, and the discretionary spending that goes into how we shape that programming and how we build that curriculum. I understand that we have talked at length on how we can improve Milford's overall standing within the community to elevate scoring for all of our students. I would also like to see financial literacy. I would also like to see social emotional learning, and I would also like to see Milford come back to its enrichment programs and its EP courses. When I was a student there, I had the pleasure of taking some, and I was under the impression that there would have been more by now, or they would have been expanded, maybe tech, maybe robotics, maybe this, that, the other thing. That has not come to pass. If anything, while Milford has been struggling to confront its changes and not really broaching or dealing with the facilities problems that we've had, we've kind of let some of that specialized education slip. And I'm not the first person to have been told this or the first person to have observed it. So I think we all want to see all of our students perform the base level and those excel. And we need to find the way and the power to make that a reality for all of our students.
Okay, thank you. We have quite a few questions that have been coming in via text and phone, so I'm going to ask one of those now, and then I'm going to give it back to Joe, who has our list of questions that were sent in advance. We're going to take turns. Milford has a near 50% ESL or ESOL population district-wide, but not nearly as much representation on the actual school committee. How do we create more diversity on the school board? Martine, you answer first, please.
The only way that you can advance participation in society is with education and understanding. I guess in a kind of indirect sense to that question, what I'm saying is I am here 30 years later so that I can be a part of that change on the school committee board. I understand that, this is a sensitive subject, and it's not always easy to say, hey, look at me, I'm a little bit different, or I'm not necessarily like you, or I speak a different language, but, my name is Martín Ignacio Montoya y hablo español. So, at the end of the day, I do want to be on the school committee, and I do want to be an advocate for not just my own children, but for all of the children in this district. Thank you.
Brendan.
So this year, the high school has, the population has shifted to a majority-minority population. I think this question kind of speaks to that of how can we get more people that look and sound like me, have a similar background like me, to be represented for me, for those particular populations in our schools. I supported a candidate last year who maybe would fit that criteria. I certainly support you, Martine, and I think it would be remiss to say that you are actually missing your family's vacation right now. You flew back from Puerto Rico to be here, so I appreciate your commitment to be here. What the school committee does well currently, or I should say that the committee disseminates information in 3 different languages. So I hope that is a way to show that anyone who wants to run for school committee can and should. The other part too that I think is something that is something maybe creative and out of the scope of the school committee, but as a personal thought to this, it's actually pretty expensive to run for office. Those signs aren't cheap. If you want to do a mailing, that's not a couple dollars out of your pocket. You have to ask people for a lot of money. So maybe in the future we could set up an initiative in the town to support candidates who want to run with some nominal amount of money to support their candidacies. And maybe that gets a better range of people to not just be on the school committee or run for school committee, but for other boards and commissions as well.
All right. Last Sunday, the winners of the annual Massachusetts Scholastic Arts and Science Awards competition for students in middle school and high school were printed in the Boston Globe. Milford has always been well represented. However, this year only one Milford student made the list, a Stacy Middle School student who won an honorable mention in writing. No Milford students won in visual art or any other category. I'd like to know if the arts are still being supported and fostered in our schools. Please comment. Brendan.
It's a tough question. In the budget discussions in January, the school committee voted against having an additional full-time music teacher. I think there's a lot of needs that this district has, and the education of our children is the first and foremost. So a lot of times, unfortunately, arts are put on the back burner. And you know, I think something, as a school committee member, I would certainly want to hear more about that. I want to learn more about that, and potentially support different programs and initiatives. And you know, on top of that, when we're thinking about school design, when we're potentially rebuilding the high school or renovating it, how do we incorporate those particular courses into the structure of the building itself? So there's a lot of different ways to slice it. I unfortunately am not fairly educated on that particular subject, but I would love to learn more about it and support those particular programs.
Martine.
I go out? Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, Joe. I missed the first little portion of that question. Can you please repeat that from the
Sure.
top?
Yeah, so recently in the Boston Globe, there's an article where they mentioned winners of the annual Massachusetts Scholastic Arts and Science Award, and there was only one student from Milford that won an award. It was a Stacy Middle School student who won honorable mention in writing.
Understood. I think that, for two people who are not incumbents and have never actually been privy to a lot of the information that passes hands in board meetings, particularly regarding the financing and the decisions that are made regarding what curriculum is or isn't kept, we're kind of finding a little blind here. But I think that we can all agree that due to the stresses that have been placed on this community, and they have been ratcheted up very quickly, like within the last 5 years, that the stress has really been put on. It's likely that we've seen some deterioration in some of the supplementary programming, music, arts, science, math. Being on the cultural council, this is kind of a personal topic for me. And even speaking to that, we have actually funded some projects that have initiated within the district for our students to participate in. I don't know if that's necessarily a function of there not being those resources within the district available to these students, or if it's just supplementary resources that they're tapping into to make their art. But at the end of the day, I have a huge soft spot in my heart for art. Outside of my technical work, I'm a photographer, and I would love to see Milford focus on this issue. It just can't come at the expense of buildings and teaching people how to read and write. So I think we all have to kind of hone in on what is of critical importance and address those fires as quickly as possible, and then kind of settle down and take care of some of the other issues that are facing the community.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, Martine, you'll answer it first. This came in by text. What investments do you plan to make in technology to meet the growing needs of our technologically savvy students? Please be specific.
Oh my goodness, great question. So this is also a personal question. So in 1998 to 99, when I was a junior and senior, I was actually in, I think it was either the first or the second year of Richie Alves' technology program, and this was, the late 90s. Build a computer, install an operating system, connect it to a network. I can look back at that and say, it's because of that I have the job that I have now, selling technology services to businesses and towns. So there is a critical importance to provide some of this additional curriculum and education. It becomes a question of what is Milford going to focus on or specialize in, because we are not by our nature a technical institute. So we do have to provide those services, and we do have to provide that curriculum, and we need to figure out what or how we're going to present this so that it is a benefit to the students, not only as being educated, but also upon graduation to move into the workforce. That said, to be specific, I would love to see some core curriculum on networking. I would love to see some core curriculum on cloud services. Those are the two most pressing things that we're currently dealing with in the technology world right now, and it would behoove the district to invest in this.
Thank you. Brendan?
Yeah, I think Martine's correct as to what the industry is demanding. You're seeing a lot of tech positions lower the bar from bachelor's to a high school diploma with an accredited type of course of coding things of that nature. So I would be very interested in investing in specific coding courses that end as a certification that someone could use to enter the workforce immediately into. I think there's opportunities for local partnerships similar to what we did with the science wing. We have partnerships with Waters and other biofarms in the area. We could do something similar for technology where they actually will invest some of their own resources in terms of human capital as well as physical capital into the schools to give students an opportunity. As an example, in Texas, the new Tesla Gigafactory there, Tesla actually donated a bunch of welding equipment for the trades for the high school that the town is in because they want to get kids who have the experience in it. So a similar thing can be done here. It's not like Massachusetts is lacking in technology companies. So yeah, I would say that. And lastly, as an example, my middle brother in Connecticut, he's a principal at a middle school. He got a $50,000 grant last year to bring esports into his school. This year they are national champions. We have a very good and aggressive grant writing department in the schools. I would like to tap into that more to expand upon similar programs that would allow for whatever it might be, from esports to a photography business or in between. And I know technology is a very broad term, and I'm sure photography might not exactly be the most relevant, but yeah, I would absolutely find a lot of ways to incorporate it.
Thank you.
All right, so Brenda, we're going to start with you. The school committee negotiations are underway with the teachers union. Is there any specific issue you'd like addressed during these negotiations?
Yeah, really good question. As Martin alluded to, we are on the outside looking in. A lot of union contracts are under executive session. We're not privy to those conversations, especially as they are nailing down the final details. And in fact, tonight, the school committee has met on a union issue, union contract issue. I support unions. I think our teachers are, by and large, underpaid. Milford does a really good job of supporting them. I want to find whatever way we can to continue to support our teachers, our staff, and our administrators. So, I don't have anything specific because I'm not privy to a lot of those conversations, but yeah, I will always support the teachers union and their needs to educate our students.
Martine?
I agree. At the end of the day,
Our role here is to support the district, and that means in all of its forms, in all of its facets. When it comes to union negotiations, when it comes to grievances, when it comes to facilities, when it comes to reviewing our superintendent, there are specific tasks that are assigned to the school committee. But to the point, in this specific context, we really don't have the information to adequately answer that question in a direct sense, as we don't know what the negotiations are necessarily about, the finer minutiae, the details that are involved therein. That said, we, in this capacity, have to be that scale of the balance. We're being elected to this position under the auspices of acting in the greatest possible interest you can for the students in that district. That means going into the Dragon's Den and sitting down between the district that has the money and the union that is trying to figure out how they're going to get these teachers a living wage. That said, I plan on working as hard as I can to make sure that we can get our teachers a salary that is respectable and that is reputable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What role do you feel the school committee plays in advocating for legislative, testing, and curriculum changes at the state level, if at all? And Martine, you respond first, please.
I'm sorry, can you run that by me again, Jerry?
What role do you feel the school committee plays in advocating for legislative, testing, and curriculum changes at the state level, if at all?
Every level in the local context. And I'm actually going to loop this back to some of the conversation we were having earlier regarding MCAS scoring and how testing is conducted. Regardless of what we think of the MCAS and what it does or doesn't measure, it is the current regime that we operate under. While we may not control directly what that regime is or does, we can influence it. And that comes back to the political aspect of it. And that is being an advocate for the changes that the district wants to see. Milford is part of a program called MCIEA. And this is it's almost like taking the standardized testing out of the equation and making it more like a feedback kind of system where people are reporting on the overall operations of the district, the performance of the teachers, the performance of the students, how they're being viewed by the general public. Long story short, there are forces within the district that would like to see change, and I would personally advocate for them because, as I said, I may not necessarily love the MCAS, but I understand that the state put this in place so that they have a metric, albeit not a good metric, but a metric with which to measure their districts against.
Yeah, to kind of echo what Martine's saying, the law dictates what we have to do and provide. So as a school committee member, we have to be aligned with that. We have federal laws that the state has to adhere to. We have state laws that we have to adhere to. That being said, I already engaged with our state rep and state senator on a multitude of issues. I've stood up in front of town meeting to advocate for budgets, for the school committee or for the schools in general. It takes a village, again, to echo Martine's sentiments earlier. It's important. I know we have typically one member of our committee who attends other meetings with other school committees throughout the state to have better insight into certain issues, into funding, and into advocacy. I think the next question after this would be, well, what would you want to advocate for? Part of it's already been addressed by the state. Our funding has changed, and we are getting more appropriate funding to meet the demands of this town, of the district that we would serve. Other things, I would like to see a better process to getting schools built. It's a shame that we only have maybe 10 schools a year that get picked to get built in the state. We need more throughout every district, and we need it faster, and we need it as soon as possible. To go from the planning board debate earlier about the green communities, well, how do we make our schools more sustainable? Currently, the high school has 3 boilers to heat it, one of which is broken, and we do not have a budget to repair that. But can we think about other ways to make the school more efficient? So yeah, lots of advocacy needs to happen. That's an everyday job, and that's what it takes to be a really good school committee member.
All right. So Brendan, we'll start with you again. Over the past 5 years, enrollment has grown dramatically in Milford. Do you believe the role of the school committee is simply to oversee the education of students, or should they be working with the select board and other town committees to address this rapid growth?
Well, it's not a belief. Again, it's the law. It's what the school committee is allowed to do legally. We can have discussions with every department in town, and in fact, the school committee does. But the school committee can't say, well, stop building houses or apartments. That's not what the school committee does. As a citizen, you can have that voice if you'd like, but as a school committee member, it's not part of the purview of what we can do from a legal perspective. What we have to do is educate our students. That is first and foremost what our job is, and that revolves largely around the budget and how it's allocated. We also, again, have administrative responsibilities and some curriculum as well, but largely the responsibility of the school committee member is budget and educating our children.
100%. I concur with that, Brendan. At the end of the day, it is not the school committee's purview to dictate town zoning or planning law. That's just not the way that things work. Having spoken with the administration in this building and made my way through the central office and visited several of the schools in preparation for this campaign, it became clear to me that we already have wide open lines of communications. That is between the individual departments in the district and the town itself, the police and fire department, and even the parks department. I mean, I don't think we could have done half of the projects that we did and the Cultural Council without the participation of both the school district and of Jim Azam and the Parks Department. So, you know, it really isn't a question of coordination or how do we clinch off the growth of a community. That's not our purview. But what I will say is our responsibility is to anticipate, our responsibility is to advocate, and our responsibility is to prepare these students. So regardless of what an individual's sentiments might be about the population in the community, the committee as a whole has an obligation to ensure that every student that enters this district is offered the same opportunities to succeed. And that is exactly what I want to do.
Okay, next question. What are your thoughts on discussing critical race theory and gender identity with students? Martine?
What was the second portion of that? Critical race theory and what?
And gender identity.
As a school committee member, our role is to take the educational guidelines of the state of Massachusetts, filter them through the lens of our community, and provide the utmost that we can in services to address the children's and students' needs. As a long-term member of this community, I think that the pressing concerns are really focused on the facilities and issues regarding the education of the students in and of themselves. I think we were talking earlier that this campaign has been relatively, light in terms of its political load, and I don't necessarily, at least up until this point, I don't think that this has become a primary concern within the community. If it is, it's something that we can absolutely address as a committee, but I don't think I haven't run across this myself yet, no.
Okay, Brendan.
Yeah, Martine's correct. The school committee, again, has a narrow scope as to what the roles and responsibilities are. First, my understanding of critical race theory is a graduate level course. So generally speaking, it's probably not appropriate to talk about a lot of graduate level content to students in general. But that being said, this has been a hot button issue that's been created by certain people to create division among our communities for reasons that are unknown to me, and more importantly, not important to a school committee member. As far as discussions with students around gender identity, our staff and teachers, they support students throughout their entire life while they're in our schools. And that involves a lot of different things. At the youth center, we've had discussions about it, about how our bathrooms should be gendered or not gendered. We've had discussions about a multitude of things in that area and others. I mean, there's a lot of kids in our district who may not have a home to go to, or may not have the best home life in general. And there's a lot of issues that our teachers, guidance counselors, staff, administrators all deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I don't see why gender identity would not be a part of that. It's part of growing up. It's part of the support system that we here have in Milford. And as I currently see it from a school committee member perspective, there is no changes I would make to any of our policies around either one of those issues.
All right. Do you think selective admission standards at BBT are locking out exactly the kind of students who need vocational training, and what can we do to support them?
Short answer here, yes. Yes. BBT is wonderful, and it provides a lot of good resources, but it does leave out students who may want to take advantage of those programming. The high school was originally intended to have more trades in it. It is built for it. Whatever we do at the high school, whether we rip it down completely, renovate it, whatever it might be, we should bring it back. I don't see why this is an either-or issue. We can have vocational training in our schools, and we should have vocational training in our schools. So BBT is great. They should continue to do what they're doing, but we should also support our students who may not be academically eligible to get into that school, but also give them the ability to enter into the workforce, because as I said in the beginning, 25% of our students enter the workforce immediately upon graduating from the high school. So we need to support those kids, and a lot of those areas tend to be the trades, and those are well-paying jobs, so we should give our students the ability to learn those trades, get a good paying job, and support whatever the life endeavors happen after they leave the school system.
100% agreed. I think this actually harkens back to a question by Mr. Rhodes earlier. School choice was the hot button issue as a result of the relationship between BBT and Milford. That has changed dramatically in 30 years. Back when I was a student, it wasn't viewed in the same light that it is today, and it isn't unfair. I guess it isn't an apples to apples comparison to say, hey, here's this institution that was, a technical institution from its outset, X years ago, and then comparing it on an apples to apples basis, because they don't have the same challenges that Milford does as a different district. They don't have the same population. They don't have the same educational gaps. They're fundamentally different animals. Now, the question is, how can Milford position itself to provide the supplementary services and the educational programming so that the students can excel when they graduate from high school? I know that Nancy Angelini and Mr. Dan Nelson have put together a fantastic technology program that has matured and grown tremendously since I was enrolled in that program many, many years ago. I think this comes back to the question of determining what of that discretionary spending can be aligned not only to facilities and reducing the overall educational gap between those who have and those who don't, but also being able to provide technical education of merit in our district. So that is something that I would absolutely like to see as part of the program moving forward. I think it's probably up for debate as, do we need a woodshop class? Maybe not. HVAC and tech, absolutely. There's going to be some picking and choosing. So regardless of what the outcome is when the school is built, I'm sure we'll be moving forward with some wider educational offerings.
Thank you. Okay, we have reached the end of the forum, and thank you, Brendan and Martine, for participating tonight and for sharing your ideas and vision and your perspective regarding the Milford Public Schools, our students, and our families. Can we have a round of applause for Brendan and Martine, please? Thank you. Before we close, we do have a few brief announcements. Tonight's forum will be available on demand very soon on milfordtv.net and on our website and Facebook page. We invite everyone to participate in this year's Milford Beautification Day, which will be held Saturday, April 22nd. Please come anytime between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. to the parking lot across from Sacred Heart Church to pick up gloves, trash bags, and assignments. The Lions Club will once again be cooking hot dogs and hamburgers for all the volunteers. Also, we will soon be accepting new sponsorships and renewals for the Draper Memorial Park Field of Flags. Information is located on the welcome table over here and on our website. The first display will take place for Memorial Day. And most importantly, Milford voters, Citizens for Milford hopes tonight's forum was informative. We urge you all to vote, whether by absentee ballot or in person. Per the town clerk, the deadline to register to vote is 5 o'clock this Friday. Election day is Tuesday, April 4th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and good night.